Hey everybody, Nick Esposito here at the Esposito Strength Club. I just wanted to go over my personal injury story with all you guys, and hopefully you guys can learn from my mistakes that I made going through youth baseball and growing up and eventually going through some of the injuries that I had. That's something that got me into being a strength coach, and that's something that I feel, on a daily basis I try to help as many baseball players as I can not make the same mistakes I did, especially with the amount of baseball being played right now and the amount of games and throwing that's happening year round. So I just kind of wanted to give some insight into, what I went through and kind of some of the adjustments I've made over time and still some of the things I see on a daily basis with baseball players and athletes. So let's get started here. So growing up, I played for way too many teams. Like there was a point where, up until I got, actually even in college, I was still playing for multiple teams because I had, summer ball and some other things. I was always playing on at least two teams, which, isn't terrible, but, growing up, I was playing on four, sometimes five teams. There was a point when I was 12, I think that's when I first got into AAU or private baseball. You know, I was playing on rec leagues, I hadn't really started anything year round yet. And, going up all the way through high school, I think my junior year of high school leading into it, that's when I first started to have elbow pain. And that's when, looking back at that now, I wish, I had either shut it down or I had, done some other things along the way to, maybe impact me from not needing Tommy John, which I had that at 17, but I was injured at that with that injury at 16. That season, specifically my 16U season, I was playing for my high school team. I played on my Legion team. I was playing on an AAU team. I was playing on a senior Babe Ruth team. And then I played fall ball. So I played for five teams over the course from April through the end of October. That's not counting any of the showcases I did. That's not counting any of the camps that I had went to, which those were happening the fall prior to my junior season. So pretty much from, I'd say honestly, from September all the way through pretty much the full next year, I was playing on multiple teams, which eventually it caught up to me. And, after playing for all those teams, not only was I playing for those teams, I was constantly, pitching for those teams too. And that was something that I had a mistake, and I was still actually doing lessons too at that point. So there's really no shutdown period for me, which was my personal mistake. And that's something that, I still see it. I still see kids going from team A, hey, I didn't get my innings here. I'm going to go play for team B. I'm just going to go play rec league and get my innings in. It's like, well, you don't actually know when you're going to be pitching. Hopefully your teams are telling you, hey, you're going to be up for this game, this game, this game, but not many do that at the youth levels. My high school season, I actually pitched 13 of our 20 games. And that was including through the playoffs where I was, pretty much on 3 days rest. And as a competitor, I wanted the ball. I did not want to pitch. I wanted to be the guy on the mound. I wanted to be the guy to get the job done. I enjoyed it, but I also did have an off button, which, hindsight, I should have, not done all that pitching. But, I was also throwing 120 pitches a game, 130 pitches a game. It was great at that point, but then after, 3 or 4 straight months of that, it caught up to me. And when I broke it down, it was actually crazy. At 16 years old, I pitched more than most major leaguers do. I was close to 200 innings, which is kind of the benchmark for a major league grown man to throw a full season from the course of April through the end of September. I did that at 16. And, when I go into that, that's one of the reasons why I feel I needed Tommy John. At 17 years old, 16, 17 years old, that was way too many innings. That was way too many pitches. And that just led to some elbow pain. I did not listen to that elbow pain. So if you guys have any pain whatsoever, discomfort, tightness, shut it down. Go get it looked at. I ended up not shutting it down. I pitched through it. I was like, oh, I only have a few more weeks of the fall left. Well, here in New England, it gets pretty cold, pretty early. So around October, we were, entering our fall ball, and I was throwing pretty much a complete game, 7 innings every Saturday. Sometimes it was 30 degrees, 35 degrees, 40 degrees, just cold. I didn't take care of my body. And I remember it was snowing in our final game. It was like the little mini all-star game at the end of the fall ball. And, I threw a pitch and it just shooting pain, like way more pain than I had been experiencing prior leading up to that. And I was kind of in the mode of like, well, this is the last game, whatever. I'll take a couple weeks off or whatever. Everything will be fine. Well, went to the doctor, diagnosed it. Tried doing the rehab setting. See if I can play. It was a partial tear. It didn't repair. It didn't feel good. I was able to still throw, but not at 100%. I was probably close to like 60%. And it just, led to Tommy John surgery at 17 years old. And that impacted, where I can go to college. That impacted everything I did from that point moving forward. I knew I needed to change something. So we go into the next slide. There's really no recovery time for me. That was something that, looking back at that, you need time to let your body recover. I mean, there's all these teams going around. There's all these lessons going around. Lessons shouldn't be off the mound every time. You don't need to be throwing off a mound every single throwing session you do. There's so much more you can do that will allow your body to recover without the constant high stress of throwing. I mean, you could do low level throwing. You can work on arm mapping. Maybe there's some mechanics you need to work on. Maybe there's something that you need to focus on specifically for that lesson. So that's something that you need to take pride in. Make sure you are working through having time off. Time off is a good thing. That's the time to let your body recover. That's the time to focus on some of your weaknesses. And that's really the time to hit the gym. And that, showcases and camps. Talk to your coaches if you're playing private teams. Reach out to coaches. Myself, you can always reach out to me. I have a lot of people I can reach out to myself to find out if that showcase is worth it for you to go, or if that camp is worth it for you to go. Because I was going to camps, I was going to showcases and college visits, trying to hide essentially Tommy John surgery. So going from throwing, I don't know, it's like probably like mid 80s in high school prior to my elbow injury. I was throwing like mid 70s. I was dropped like 10 miles per hour, which I wasn't at the best. So when these colleges did see me, they saw me throwing 10 miles an hour slower than what they had heard, which colleges kind of looked at that and were like, wow, was that just hype? Did someone give us the wrong information? I was kind of, pushed off to the side from that point on. Things changed once I found out I needed surgery, but they also didn't really increase their interest anyway. I believe I went to probably one or two showcases every month from October and November. I was traveling down to Florida, going all these different places to throw in front of scouts or colleges or schools. I wasn't healthy. And, leading up to that, in hindsight, that's what I'm kind of always going to go back to. Hindsight, maybe those camps and showcases weren't the best option for me at that time. And that's something that you yourself as a player or parent or coach, you have to evaluate that and find out what the best option for you at that timing. I also never strength trained. I did not do any of it, which is crazy to me because what I do now and the amount of kids I work with that were so far ahead of me at that age when, it's 15, 16, 17 years old, I never did it. I never really touched weights. I didn't do any of that until really my second year of college because I was hurt with Tommy John. I used it as a crutch. I was like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do this. It led to some stuff going on with my school. I needed to, show my teammates that I could actually work on stuff and get better. But, the no strength training thing really impacted me because that delayed my recovery time. Not saying that, you're going to be hurt if you don't do it, but it's going to put you so far ahead of that potential down the road. If your body is strong, if your body is structured, if you have the mobility, if you have the strength, throwing is not a natural movement. It's a very violent movement, and if your body is not prepared for that amount of stress that you're putting on your body over and over and over again, something along that chain link is gonna give out. And for me, it was my elbow. I had nothing to slow my arm down. I had no muscle to slow my arm down. I had nothing to positively impact my ability to recover. That's another aspect too. We talked about that on the previous slide. Was recovery. There's no time for me. I was just throwing. I didn't take care of my body. I didn't do strength training. It just caught up to me, and that's something that I wish all kids get into their strength training early on, because you can learn all the foundational lifts, you can learn all your movements, but when you get older, now you can start loading those movements, and now you can start getting stronger along those, your lifting patterns. But I also didn't do any arm care. So that comes down to whether I was doing like, full cans or band work or anything like that. I just didn't do it. I didn't want to take that 10 minutes. I was just like, oh, whatever. I throw hard enough now. It's fine. I don't really need arm care. It was never really in my mind. I just did a couple band work like before I would throw, but nothing too serious. I never took it seriously. Combining that with strength training and recovery, I could have had a different path. Would I change that path? No, because it put me in, the position I'm in now to help a lot of kids along the way. But I just never did arm care, and seriously take the 10 minutes to go through a program. Go through that 2-3 times a day. Make sure you're staying current with that. That is huge, and that is something that coaches notice that stuff. If you're in high school going to showcases and you take a little bit of time to go through your arm care, coaches pick up on that. They definitely will see you putting in the work and putting in your internal motivation, and your effort really comes down to they'll notice you doing all that stuff, which you'll say, okay, will he be damaged goods when he's in college? Maybe, maybe not. He's doing his arm care. That means he might take pride with his other stuff. Let's go talk to him. Let's go strength. Does he strength train? Does he do this? They might want to get to know you a little bit more instead of writing you off right away. It's just another way of kind of getting another perspective from, coaches and showcases and all that. I also had shoulder labral surgery, a slap tear in my shoulder. That brings me to my next point. Strength training programs do matter for baseball players. It matters. My shoulder surgery, it could have been avoided just like my elbow surgery. I, was following a program. It was just kind of on our own. We were in the process of moving facilities actually, and we didn't really have any other equipment besides bench press and the ability to do push-ups. Those exercises are fine. They're good exercises. Maybe not barbell bench press for pitchers. That's another story. But we had no equipment. So instead of doing, a specific program that incorporated, legs or other things, we just did a Tabata set actually, which is essentially 20 seconds of max effort, and you do 10 seconds of rest, and you do that 8 times. That was station 1. And, we had a bench press station, we had dumbbell bench press station, we had incline dumbbell bench station, we had push-up station, elevated push-up station. And the way that we kind of structured our, at least like from the pitcher's perspective, was half the group was doing their max effort bullpens to, win a spot to be a starter, reliever, whatever, or make the roster essentially. And the other group was lifting, and then we just traded off. And we did that for a week straight. After that week, my shoulder was not really feeling too good. And, I hit it and I wanted to play. I had just transferred schools. I had sat out 2 years with injuries in college. At my first school, I didn't really get to play much in my third season. So, I transferred for a different scene. That ended up, led to some shoulder stuff, but that also could, and I feel definitely had, my shoulder had an impact from when my original elbow injury was. I didn't really do arm care like I talked about. I didn't really, do anything, but the only thing different from my shoulder to my elbow was I shut it down. Instead of continuing to throw, my recovery time from one outing to the next was literally got to the point where I need like a full week of just no throwing before I threw off the mound again. And it was like, I threw enough in the bullpen to be loose, knowing, I was a reliever. I needed to be 8 pitches away to be prepared and to be ready for the game. I get those 8 pitches prior to the at-bat starting. I knew I just needed to be 8 away, so I would save, my max effort throws until that point. But, I went in, got the MRI, and luckily when I did stop throwing, I was heading down that path of a complete shoulder overhaul. It would have been labrum, rotator cuff, and the biceps tendon basically rupturing just with the amount that I was doing on my shoulder when I was throwing. I was lucky when I stopped throwing when I did, because that definitely made a big difference for me. And I actually had a better recovery because I was strength training leading up to it. I was basically said I can't allow what happened with my elbow surgery to continue happening with my shoulder. So my recovery time getting back to throwing off a mound was around 6 to 8 months. Every story is a little bit different, but I do feel because I was doing a little bit of a different shoulder program, I was fortunate enough to, meet some people while I was out in Omaha that, had a better understanding of what, I would need from a strength program for a baseball player. And, I was lucky to find them when I did because that led to a little quicker rehab. Um, but that leads me to the next aspect. That was, there was no structure for the training that I was doing. There was no, it was just 3, 2, 1, go do this program. No coaching really. There was no like, is your body prepared to do this? There was no, learn the movements first and go. It was just 3, 2, 1, go. I mean, I actually hurt my back too in college. I herniated L5S1 disc in college at 19. I still deal with that pain to this day. I hadn't thrown up yet from our team lift, so I wasn't working hard and in their view. So grab some heavy weights, try to max it out, and pop my disc. I herniated the disc, and that obviously led down to some shoulder issues, and it was just a mess. I was just constantly hurt, and I needed to change it, and I needed to find an actual plan. And that's what I talked about in that last slide a little bit ago was I found a plan that started to help me get on a better path. And I was lucky to find, his name was actually Travis Manners out in Omaha, Nebraska. He was affiliated with the Brewers at that point, but now he runs a nice little physical therapy training center out in Omaha. So if you guys are out in Omaha or in that area, go check him out. I think it's called Athletes Training Center. But getting onto a structured plan, having an idea of what you're going to be doing every day is huge. And that can impact you on a daily basis, all the way from youth levels all the way into college. And if you make it into the pro levels, it's going to be you. I mean, you're going to be on your own with that to a certain extent. Teams will give you input, teams will give you guidance, but it's going to come down to you. You're old enough, you're mature enough to make those decisions, and you are in control of your own development. And some of your options, I'm pretty excited. Mike Reinhold and Mike has been such an influence for me over the last 9 months that I've been working alongside with him at Champion. Me and him kind of said, what's the problem? What's going on with baseball? What's going on with lifting? And the problem is not a lot of kids are following an actual program meant for baseball players. They're following stuff that they find online that might not be, built for baseball players, might be bodybuilding or might be football, or, who knows where that program was made, or who knows what it was. So these programs Mike and I developed are based off the stuff that we do every day at Champion with our youth baseball players and with our advanced baseball players. These are the same principles we use when we're programming for our pro guys, for our college guys, all the way down to our youth athletes. So I'm going to link up to that down in the sections below. So make sure you guys check out these programs. They're awesome. They're both 12 weeks long. The youth one is great to get a starting point, to build up your foundation and to get your movement patterns down. The advanced one is obviously advanced. It's meant for high school players that want to play at the next level, or incoming freshmen, sophomores in high school that want to be prepared for that next level and make varsity and then continue on into college. So make sure you guys click on those links, check them out. We put a lot of work into these programs and we're pretty excited to launch them. We've had a lot of good feedback from a lot of players that signed up already. So feel free, click those links, and that is it. Thank you guys.